歡迎三位，我哋俾啲熱烈嘅掌聲，三位年輕嘅小伙子，將個台交俾你哋啦。
So, good afternoon, everybody. Today we're doing a panel with the three of us, and we'll be talking about entrepreneurship and how we view entrepreneurship and innovation. So, can the two of you briefly introduce yourself and explain what you're doing?
So, hi everyone, my name is Emma Yang. I'm a 10th grader from New York City, and I'm the founder of Timeless, which is an app that uses artificial intelligence-based facial recognition technology to empower Alzheimer's patients to stay connected with their friends and family.
So, I'm Jordan, I'm 16, and I'm the founder and CEO of Pedosa. Pedosa is a collective name of a few startup companies I founded over the past few years in the technology and digital media fields. And one of our major startups is in the Internet of Things areas. And we leverage our patented technologies in the Internet of Things workflow and infrastructure designs to drive digital transformation within organization and enterprises. And at the same time, in addition to my businesses, I founded a few local NGOs to drive youth innovation, youth entrepreneurship here in Hong Kong. So this is what I do.
Cool. Please do explain how you guys got started. When and how did all this get started?
Sure. I got the idea for Timeless when I was around 11 or 12 years old. I've been coding since I was really young. I started coding, with Scratch, like kind of making games when I was around 6, and started kind of going from there, building websites and mobile apps. And when I was around 11 or 12, I got this idea, which is inspired by my grandmother. She has Alzheimer's disease, and because of her experiences with me, kind of seeing her kind of forget my birthday or forget how to use the TV, I wanted to use technology and my ability to code to create something that could help her with her daily life.
In fact, Pedosa wasn't my first startup company, actually. I founded my first startup when I was 9 years old, back in 2011. My first startup was an online learning platform community for coding, for programming. The idea was that because I've been learning, just like Emma, I've been learning to code for a few years prior to starting the company. But all those information online makes it very, quite difficult to learn all the inconsistency about the learning resources, and that's why I like to form this new online platform, online community, to improve this. So this was the idea. However, the resources, financial resources, human resources, and was very lack at that time. So what I did was that I recruited volunteers and sponsors from around the world to help me. And with the help of over 100 volunteers from around the world, I launched the platform in August 2012, shortly after my 10th birthday. So this was how it started.
So, after working on a startup for quite a few years, I was wondering what you guys think is the most important quality to run a startup, and in the context of your business, what do you think is your yardstick for success, or yardstick for what you think is impact in your own frame of business?
I think that the main quality that I've had to use with the startup is perseverance, especially because of my age, because of my project. I think that, as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, you go out there, you try to find funding, you try to find people who can design with you, develop with you, to collaborate. And, a lot of the time people don't take you seriously because they think, you're like a middle school student, why would I trust you? And so I think that in the beginning, really having to persevere to find that group of people who really believed in me and really wanted to help me was a big challenge that I had to really kind of push forward and push through. And I think that now the way I measure my success is through the number of people I can help. You can always look at, revenue, you can look at money, but I think that, at the heart of entrepreneurship is finding a problem that you see in your daily life and solving that. And I think that the number of people that I'm able to benefit and impact is how I measure my success.
Also agree with Emma because the perseverance, the determination is certainly a very important quality that we have. Another thing I believe is to be more grateful for everything that we have been presented with, because particular to my background, because I've been growing up in a local Chinese-dominated family and local school. In terms of the resources, the opportunities that were being provided were very much in lack back then when I started my first company. And, of course, I didn't give up, otherwise we have to be very, very determined to do so. But the process was very challenging. There were lots of obstacles. Many discouraging comments. I believe but there's still a lot of people who helped me along the way. For example, today we have my parents are here. Two of my very respected mentors, teachers are here. I'm very grateful for them. They provided me with a lot of opportunities that I can flourish and develop. I believe this is also a very important quality for a youth entrepreneur.
Building on the concept of perseverance, there's a myth that I'm sure most of you have heard, and that's the idea that 90% of startups fail. So how do you guys view challenges or failure? And what do you do, and how do you overcome these challenges?
I think that every time I hit a challenge with other people, kind of trying to reach out to people, I think that it's a way to kind of look at what are they looking for? What do they want to see in me that they're not seeing right now, or that I need to kind of present to them? And I think that one of those things is kind of showing that you're trustworthy, showing that you're really passionate about what you do. And I think that over time I've really learned how to kind of reach out to people to see this is what I want to do. And do you believe in me, and are you going to help me? And I think really persevering and really pushing for yourself has been the way that I really overcome those challenges.
I also agree in terms of all the challenges that we face, and I believe two of the largest areas of challenge that we face over the past the years that I've been starting up. Of course, the practical issues, the legal issues that we've been talking about. Here in Hong Kong, we can't start a company until we're 18. And all the banking issues, all these kind of things. And I also spent a considerable amount of time, in forming multiple, offshore entities in order to maintain, corporate structure, that kind of thing, to persuade the banks to open an account for me. These are some of the practical problems, but these are still doable as long as we're perseverant, we're determined enough. All of these are actually doable. But another thing I believe the challenge is about, the social side of the entrepreneurship journey. I'm not sure about, other communities, at least from what I see from a local, dominated community. What I see is that the acceptability of youth, doing innovative, doing entrepreneurship stuff, it's not very widely accepted, I could say. It's uncommon, it's rare, but it doesn't mean it can't be achieved. And of course, there will be lots and lots of discouraging comments, but the outcome is to say how to come across all of these problems. Of course, from the perspective of the startup company, we create value for our clients. We create impact on our communities through our organizations, and of course, all those profits, all those revenue, and as well as the achievements that we have brought in. I believe this is how this encouraged me, to go across all of them. Yeah.
Bearing in mind that all of us have touched on themes like youth and how that can cause our own individual challenges, I would like to ask you guys, what do you think youth has in the role of, let's say, startups and innovation?
I think that a lot of people view youth as being inexperienced or not knowing what you're doing. But I think that especially in an age where technology and the internet really connects us, I think that youth is important because we are tomorrow's leaders. We always hear you're going to be leading tomorrow and showing your ideas. And I think that it's really great that we now have the opportunity to kind of express our ideas and execute them when we're still in high school. And I think it's really important that people kind of listen to us and kind of support young people, because our ideas are kind of a whole new perspective that wasn't visible before. And if we're able to kind of show that perspective and really have people listen to us, I think that in our education system, in the way that we kind of foster this kind of growth, especially in entrepreneurship, it's going to change a lot, and it's actually going to improve the tech sector in general.
I really agree, because entrepreneurship really is a very special thing, especially among youth. At least it transformed me. Transformed me and many youth entrepreneurs around the world. From something mediocre kind of person into something that is much greater in the process. But I believe the most special thing about youth entrepreneurship is that we have to understand the nature of entrepreneurship among youth. It's not just about the companies, just not just about the revenue, all those kind of value that we create. It's also about a learning process. And I believe as a young entrepreneur, as a young innovator, the things that we've learned over the past few years has been very rewarding, and most likely it's going to create a very significant advantage over other teenagers. And I believe those who are able to respect this, those, as Emma says, and those are going to understand this, the parents, educators who know this, are going to be able to nurture and raise individuals that are going to lead the success well into the way. Yeah.
Right. So I would say that entrepreneurship amongst youth is something that's becoming more and more talked about globally. And given that, I'm sure everyone's noticed the rise of STEAM and STEM education. But I'd like to see what you guys think and as to how schools and communities can cultivate entrepreneurship amongst the youth.
I think that a lot of it is about educating youth about how to take an idea from something that you have in your mind that you want to execute to something that's actually executed. Because I think the process of going from I have an idea for this to creating a prototype to now almost being able to launch an app has been a process that I've had to get a lot of help for. And it has come across with a lot of challenges. And I think that in our education system, we need to emphasize more on, what are the real life skills that we need to obtain to, push for yourself, advocate for your ideas, and find those things that you're really passionate about and try to get those into a reality.
I also agree with you in terms of the importance of STEM education, all this type of creativity that has been infused. And in fact, I believe STEM education is crucial, or STEAM education, whatever it's called, is crucial, to developing innovative and entrepreneurship mindset among teenagers. And in fact, as I've said personally, I've founded a few local non-profit organizations that has been dedicated to promoting this kind of thing. In fact, we have young innovators. He's here today. He's just 13. He's founded his own company in terms of creating lots and lots of global impact. Some of them are even profitable. So this is just a very amazing thing to see what STEM education has to offer. But I believe as Emma said, the local education system have been focusing a lot on rote learning, on academic studies. And another thing, of course, is the culture thing. It focuses a lot on conformity rather than individuality. And I believe this seriously hinders, the development of STEM education in Hong Kong. And I believe, it's going to have to take a very long way, and more those other stories, so that people would understand the true meaning of STEM education. It's about embracing individuality, rather than conformity. Yeah.
As someone who's also working in EdTech, I would agree with these points, but I wanted to ask you guys as to how do you think these changes can be accomplished, especially in places like Hong Kong with the rigid school system, with rote learning and all that comes with it. How do you think change can be achieved in the education system?
I think that a lot of it is, exposure to other students who are doing similar things. I think that, over time I've seen a lot of growth within, in my school or even in my community of people who, hear of stories of, there are 13-year-olds building apps or building companies, and I think that really exposure is one huge step to actually showing people that this is a reality, that this is possible, and then from there shaping, the mindset of students, of children in Hong Kong and beyond of, what can I do and what is my full potential, and how can I take steps on my own, in my projects, in my ideas with my peers to kind of reach those kind of goals.
Yeah, I agree in that examples, stories of successful entrepreneurs who started young can be a very good things to persuade to foster changes in our society. But I believe another very important thing is that we people, parents nowadays, I could say parents. The reason why they focus a lot of their attention on academic studies is, of course, the education system, all those kind of things shows that by having a good academic performance, particularly in those other subjects, it's going to be a step, a competitive advantage for those young individuals. But what we have to understand is that the world is changing. The world is changing, and in the fact that no matter it's good or bad, or whatever you think, it's going to change. And another thing very important is that, as we said, STEM education. Many people treat STEM education, as another, just another subject on the list. However, it is not. It's about embracing the fact that every single individual, teenagers, children are special, and that they have certain innate abilities in driving them. And so, as you say, how can we drive this change? In addition to talking about the stories of successful entrepreneurs, successful individuals, it's also about the mindset in that understanding the fact that every single child is different. And those parents, those educators, as I've said, are those who understand this, are going to be able to lead the change forward in the future. Yeah.
I'd like to add on about the point about STEM. Bearing in mind that it's science, technology, engineering, mathematics, sometimes people add arts in there. what part of this do you think cultivates individuality? Do you think that STEM is the key to solving education? Or what do you guys think would also be required to add in there for entrepreneurship in general?
I think that a lot of people talk about adding more STEM education and stuff, but I think that one of the main parts is the intersectionality of STEM. STEM isn't always just about engineering or just about the science textbook that you see in your classroom. It's also about how is science being applied and computer science being applied into fields like history or English or into the business sector. Because I think it's not just about purely your teacher telling you about science and that being incorporated into your education system, but it's also about showing in the real world, how is STEM being used? How is an engineer actually going to be applied into, doing history research? Or how does a roboticist, do, in actually the business sector? How are people, selling robots? And how is that working? I think that that's also a really important factor in the education system.
I also agree because it's, as we see STEM education or STEAM, I believe STEAM education is a more appropriate word for this because as we said, it's not just about studying a particular subject or learning how to program, but very unfortunately, many parents, many educators, or even teachers, are misunderstanding the true meaning of STEM education. It's also, many people treat it as if another subject, and there are lots and lots of commercial organizations that have been capitalizing on people's misunderstanding of this matter. And I believe this is a serious obstacle in achieving that. And however, I believe if when we talk about STEM education, I believe STEAM education, I believe it's also about discovering the innate abilities of the individuals, the teenagers, as well as nurturing them into something even greater. For example, teenagers in Hong Kong have been learning to play the piano, learning dozens of foreign languages or other skills. The thing is, how can we transform those interests, those talents, into something even greater? Become a career at a very young stage. For example, 10 years old, that can do so. And the sooner that you can find, your talents, your potentials, the sooner you can, achieve greater success. I believe so.
Understood. So, today pretty much everyone is here to talk about entrepreneurship, innovation. How would you guys define these two terms, and what do you think is the importance of entrepreneurship and innovation, particularly in the face of oncoming change in the world today?
I think that entrepreneurship is really about people coming together and identifying issues or problems or challenges that they see in their world. Whether that's small on a personal level or whether that's at a community level or the global scale, I think finding that problem and really coming up with a way to solve that is applicable to a lot of people, that's scalable and that's novel in a lot of cases. And I think that's where innovation comes in because entrepreneurship is really what fosters innovation, with finding new ideas and really getting those out there, executing them through, applying it to a problem that we see in the world, applying it to a solution, and then kind of making it into a widespread thing. I think that those two things are actually very interconnected, and I think something that we emphasize a lot, or need to emphasize a lot, is that innovation really comes out of entrepreneurship and fostering entrepreneurship of all kinds.
So you say that the distinction between the two terms would be entrepreneurship is the action and innovation is the thought process?
Yeah, I think that innovation can not only be, actually creating something, but also the idea. But I think that entrepreneurship is what allows us to bring the idea to the actual, product or whatever that may be.
Well, I also like to add, because Emma have talked about all those entrepreneurship, innovation, a very good description of that. I'd like to speak particularly in the context of youth entrepreneurship and innovation. I believe, of course, by running a company, youth get access to a very wide variety of skills and talents. For example, one of my first company, I was just a 9-year-old. I didn't know anything about, running a company or the financing or this kind of thing. But through the process, through, communicating with people, through running the company, I believe what I've learned is something that I cannot otherwise learn in a classroom setting, something I can learn from the textbook. And I believe this is what makes youth, innovation, entrepreneurship so special, so different, fundamentally different from, grown-up innovation and entrepreneurship, in the fact that it also fosters learning as a form of alternative education. Yeah.
One last question. What's next for you guys? For your startups, what do you want to do next, and what's your ultimate vision for it?
I think that the next step, immediate next step for Timeless is really launching it, because that will happen really soon. I'm actually in the final testing stages, and I'm going to be launching really soon. And then from there, collecting feedback, and I'm really excited to see, given all the feedback I've gotten and the feedback from internet or like articles or even globally, I think that seeing how that actually plays out in terms of my usage and how many people I'm able to help, that's really the dream for me, to really be able to impact as many people as possible. And personally, I'd love to keep on going with Timeless and see where this goes.
For me, as I've said, my major startup is in the Internet of Things in the smart city areas. The goal for me is to make technology, first of all, accessible to every single person. And the second thing is that we make technology invisible. Technology should not be intrusive. It should be supportive of what we do every day, and we should not realize that it's there. Because if it's there, it's invading our daily life. And I believe through our patented technologies that we have already deployed here in Hong Kong and various other countries, we'll continue to expand globally in other markets. We want to reach as many markets as possible to know how our technology is going to apply. And of course, for myself, for the company, of course, to continue to grow steadily. But for myself, I believe it's also very important, to continue with my education, particularly in, I believe education. Many people ask me, am I going to drop out from high school? No, I'm not going to do that. So I'll continue to pursue my education. I believe education is the key, to innovation entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So today on this panel, we've pretty much talked and ran through the entire process of youth entrepreneurship, STEM and STEAM education, and the distinction between entrepreneurship and innovation. Whether that means taking on and listening to more youth entrepreneurs, thinking about how, for us as a community, we can cultivate entrepreneurship. This is something that we can all work on in the future to help make entrepreneurship and innovation something accessible for youth, and to ensure the education system is more inclusive of us all. Is that true? Okay. Thank you, everybody, and I think that draws the panel to a close.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan, Emma and Hillary. 多謝晒3位為我哋嘅精彩分享。